And dry weather, lots of sunshine over the weekend and temperatures staying in double figures.
Right then, we're back in an hour's time. Plenty more on our website at the usual address. Now, though, we'll pass you back to Charlie and Louise. Bye for now.
Hello, very good morning. You are watching Breakfast with Charlie and Louise.
Time now is 7:32. Secondary schools will get additional funding to run classes during the summer holidays. It's part of the government's multi-million-pound plan to help children in England who face disruption as a result of the pandemic.
Boris Johnson has announced an extra £400 million for a number of schemes across all school ages, on top of the £300 million pledged last month. We're joined right now by the Education Secretary, Gavin Williamson. Morning to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Good morning.
And so many questions for you. So let's talk about this new funding. What is it designed for? Will it mean summer schools, for example?
We aim to give a real boost to children and actually support schools and teachers in terms of helping children catch up on some of lost learning that they may be suffered. But it is about summer schools. There's £200 million available to secondary schools if they want to be able to lay on summer activities for children, targeting those children they think would benefit from it most. But it's also about the expansion of our national tutoring programme. And this is like small groups of children that will have tuition laid onto them, giving them that extra help and that extra boost. But on top of that, it's also a recovery premium, over £300 million that will be going to both secondary schools and primary schools. An average primary school will be receiving an extra £6,000, an average secondary school receiving an average £22,000. And that's very much to give to the schools to use their discretion, these are the people who know the pupils best, to be able to target that help to those children as best as they can.
Right, OK,
Well, it all builds on the £1 billion that we announced just 6 months ago in terms of helping children and helping schools in terms of dealing with some of the challenges that have come out of this pandemic. The package that we announced today is, again, giving schools the sense of what additional resources are heading towards them. But in terms of...
I'm just interested what you think they will be able to provide.
Well, for example, for £6,000, they may be able to employ teachers to do some extra tuition, extra small group work for pupils that really need it. And of course, what we'll see, the best boost that we can give to children in terms of their education recovery is getting them back into school, which will be welcoming them all back into school on the 8th of March. But that's the best thing that we can do in order to be able to help children who maybe have missed out on lost learning, is to get them back into the classroom, get schools to be able to make an assessment. And we've seen some brilliant examples over the last few months about how different academy chains have done so much with the extra money that they got to be able to target that money, helping children, giving them that extra support, that extra assistance in order to catch up on learning.
Right.
Well, what I was saying, and you also £22,000 for secondary schools on average, and of course, obviously, larger primary schools will obviously have larger amounts. But what it does do is it gives schools the extra resource in order to be able to put extra pay for teachers to do overtime, support staff to do overtime, to help and assist with children to do that extra learning, that extra bit of education, that extra support that goes the extra mile and helps children to be able to bounce back from this pandemic. On top of that, we've obviously got the National Tutoring Programme, which is an enormous scheme, a multi-million-pound scheme going over a number of years. And the evidence goes to show those children who are part of the National Tutoring Programme, having that small group tuition, they're the ones, by doing this small group tuition, they're best able to catch up on lost learning. So the statistic is for 2 hours a week over a 12-week period, they're able to catch up on average 3 to 5 months worth of lost learning, which is an incredibly significant amount. Well, what we've seen is a massive expansion of laptops. As you'll know, that before the pandemic, that schools had an estimated 2.9 million laptops and tablets already on the estate. We've boosted that by already a further 1 million, a further 300,000 going out there. And, great organisations such as the Daily Mail have been running campaigns supporting even over and above that as well. So all of this has been making an enormous difference. And we are very confident that the amount of IT that's needed for schools is there and is available. And we've seen a massive expansion of that. But the National Tutoring Programme does deliver in terms of those small groups. It's often, it is over the internet, but the resources are there for schools to use with that small group tutoring.
There has been so...
Well, what we recognise is that different children, I think about my two children, about how they learn and how they learn very differently. And what we're doing is we're recognising that supporting children isn't just something that is over the next 2, 3, 4 months. This is something that is about the medium term. It's also about the long term. This is why we appointed Sir Kevin Collins to look at the recovery work, to look at what more can be done in order to be able to help schools, but most importantly, help children in order to be able to recover from any lost learning that they've suffered from. But this is going to be a long-term programme that we recognise is going to take time in order to be able to put right. That's why we're taking a long-term view. But this immediate package is to deal with some of the immediate challenges, give schools a boost, give them the support, but most importantly, give children a boost.
Can I just...
So there's £200 million available. If we look at what happened in the last summer, we saw the Harris Academy chain, who did a brilliant job in terms of laying on brilliant summer schools for some of those children who are coming into their schools, children that they identified as needing help or to be able to catch up. That money is available for schools to use in that way. It's there to be able to support them in terms of academic catch-up, but also some of the softer sides and the enrichment activities that we know all children have missed out on as well. But it's part of a long-term plan. It's part of a long-term strategy to help children and help our schools to be able to recover and able to really bounce back incredibly quickly. But the most important part of that is seeing children coming back on the 8th of March. The government has always been clear.
I will come to the 8th of March in a second, just before we move on to the 8th of March, because there are questions around that as well.
We're giving schools the option of being able to draw down on this funding. We always see schools up and down the country doing so much of this. I'd hope that all schools are able to do that, take advantage of the funding that's available, target that resource at those children who most need it. And alongside that, we've also got the holiday and activity food programme that's providing free meals for those children who are most needing it, alongside a whole roster of different activities that they can take part in. Because yes, it is about education catch-up, but it's also about children's mental health and children's mental well-being as well, which is so incredibly important.
Can we just talk about...
So in the first 2 weeks of school return in secondary schools, we're asking schools to test their pupil cohorts if they have consent from the parent 3 times during that 2-week period. We are giving the secondary schools the ability to phase children back over that first week so that they're able to be tested and then they're able to go straight to their lessons. We've already got schools delivering these tests, and since we've started rolling out this programme in late December, and since schools have had these testing kits and the equipment, we've already seen 4.5 million tests carried out in education settings.
And can I
so
just
it's already
put one
established and it's already up and running.
To you, this is from, and we've had so many questions.
Yeah. So this is why we're making extra money available to schools in order for them to be able to bring in extra resource over that 2-week period. That's either to pay for staff to sort of do extra work or to bring in additional staff in order to be able to supervise these tests. As you'll be aware, the tests are actually self-administered, but they do need supervision over that first 2 weeks. And then after that 2-week period, pupils will be getting home test kits where they're able to, we'll be asking all pupils to test themselves twice a week. This is about keeping them safe, it's about keeping the school safe, but it's also about keeping their families and communities safe as well by keeping COVID out of schools.
With regard to safety, we've had lots of messages from...
Well, Helen, what we set out in terms of a roadmap was obviously we're prioritising those people who are most likely to be hospitalised as a result of getting COVID, or even worse, be in a situation if they're hospitalised then passing away as a result of COVID. So that's what the government chose to do in terms of the first 9 groups who are most likely to be hospitalised and at risk of death as a result of COVID. After that, and we set it out in the roadmap, is that we've asked the government advisory body, the independent medical experts, to look at 2 factors. One, those who are still going to be most vulnerable as a result of dying as a result of catching COVID. And secondly, in those professions and careers where there's the most public-facing contact, where they're most at risk of getting COVID. So we're going to wait for that scientific work to be conducted and done, and that will advise the government's decision as to who are the next batch of people who will be getting the vaccine.
Just briefly...
So we're advising as part of our guidance that pupils should be wearing masks, and teachers can also be wearing masks as well. There's obviously in the guidance that we've sent out, there's obviously has to be special dispensation for example, for those children who are deaf, and we've set that out in terms of our guidance to schools, which is incredibly important. This is also going to be reviewed at Easter to see how it's working. But we've always said this at every stage, follow the very best public health advice that we can get. And this was some of the advice that we got from Public Health England, and we felt it was the right thing to do for both children and the workforce.
Can we also talk about the sort of, medium-term future year? When are they going to know exactly what the plan is?
So we've already set out most of the detail in terms of what will be happening. This will be teacher assessments. It'll be based on teacher judgment as to where that child is and as to what grade they should be having. We've conducted a extensive consultation on this, and it was one of the largest responses we've ever had as a consultation that we've run. And we're going to be in literally the next few days outlining the more granular detail of exactly what that looks like.
Will it include a national kind of a test of some form, like you would call an exam? As we've said many times before, we're not going to be running exams this year. It's going to be based on what about
teacher
mini
judgment.
Tests? That's been rumoured, hasn't it?
Well, the teachers will be making the assessment on the judgment that they believe that child should be getting in terms of their GCSEs, A-levels or BTEC. And we've done an extensive consultation, but we're not planning to run exams this year. We've been absolutely clear on that, but we'll be coming out with the further details of what came out of that consultation just in the next few days. And I'd like to sort of thank, sort of all the people who've taken the time in order to be able to respond to that consultation, including the tens of thousands of children and parents that also took part in that consultation as well.
Thank you very much indeed for your time, Gavin Williamson, Education Secretary. Thank you.
Let's see, the time now is 7:48. We're going to go. That'll work quite smoothly as a kind of Zoom family thing, didn't it?
We're all quite used to it now, aren't we? Stay with us. We've got the headlines coming up.
Everyone starts Tuesday at 9 on BBC Two and iPlayer.